left, right.
Hey, what's up, podcast listeners? We are about to be joined by my friend Nicole. So it's going to be James, myself, and Nicole discussing sexual harassment. Nicole brings a great perspective as a female that we couldn't get between James and I. So I'm really glad you joined us. Her information's below in the links. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching the podcast, it's in the text. Follow her, watch her podcast, subscribe. We all can show some love. So enjoy it, and if you want to share some feedback, maybe something that we can bring up in the future podcast, make sure to include in the comments, because I really do enjoy reading the comments and sharing your stories. All right, enjoy this. See ya. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course, it's fun.
Cheers.
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 All right. Should I put on headphones or am I good?
As long as you can hear us, you're good. I think
Your audio is pretty good still.
so. Anybody who's live should be
My
able to hear
microphone.
you. But you want to introduce yourself, because you do a lot of stuff. I may not know the full spectrum.
Oh. Yeah, so I'm Nicole. Everyone calls me Coco since I was younger. I'm a digital creator, but now I'm officially a CEO. I started my own business about 5 months ago. So I'm building my brand from the ground up. I have a podcast, a YouTube channel. I sing, I dance, I act, everything. Jack of all trades.
Can you say what it is and
What's your business?
Are you in the chat?
Totally. I haven't really done a video dedicated to it yet. I've been keeping it on the hush hush. But the name of the company is Project Nucleus. And basically, I want to create a hub for creators where they can meet together and network. And if someone has a monologue that they have to practice, they can go on my website and find someone else that can be their partner. Or if it's a YouTube video, it's just for collaborating and creators. I feel like we don't have enough platforms like that, and I've only seen a couple of them, and we need more Black Latina creators. So that's another reason for it.
So just what are the names of the podcasts that you're working on right now?
So my podcast is called Coco Explains It All. I do reviews on film, TV, entrepreneurship. I talk about that. Really giving reviews on the sex trafficking, the whole Jeffrey Epstein case. I'm really into that right now. So I make sure everything is completely factual. I leave my opinion and biases out of it. So that I'm on week 4 now. It launches tomorrow, Wednesdays at 5 a.m. And then I have a Couples Thing TV with my husband. We started it 2 years ago, and we just talk about a couple of different things. We wanted to give people raw.
I was just gonna say it's definitely raw, and it's really cool because you guys were engaged when you started it, or you weren't even engaged?
No, we got engaged this April.
So we've seen the full spectrum of the relationship over the course of the podcast.
Exactly.
The Couples Thing podcast.
It started because we used to have date nights, dedicated weekly date nights, where we would turn off all technology and just focus on one another and learn more about each other. And we would have these crazy debates that would sometimes we would find our differences. And I'm like, you know what, we should really turn this into a channel, because you watch so many shows where they talk about topics, but they're filtered and they have to watch out for their brand or their endorsement deal. And I just want to talk real shit with no barriers at all times.
So then, and that, which is why you're here, because that's kind of how this works. I don't know if you don't have a drink, it doesn't look like, so.
I have my water.
It doesn't count.
I'll be drinking later. I just drank a whole bottle of whiskey yesterday, so I'm trying to chill out.
Oh, no, so 2 people are working off hangovers then.
But I want to talk about. So on live, you're not on video for live, so it's just audio. Sorry,
We can see you though.
I'm not that technologically advanced. But I want to get some of your input on some of the sexual harassment stuff, specifically at work. But I know you can be combative because I saw on my police thing that I posted the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you going a little bit back and forth. I remain, the whole reason I posted the middle finger and the cop car on fire is because I want to draw attention to it. And,
I know. I had no problem with it. I think I support it.
And I don't hate cops, and I know that being a cop is, and James and I have talked about this a lot, how difficult it is being a cop. And there's a lot of great cops. There's a lot of cops that care, they go passionate about the job, passionate about the community. There's a lot of minority police officers, but either way, my opinion on the police was no reflection of that image. It was simply clickbait.
Oh no, I know. I was agreeing with you. I was disagreeing with the woman that had told you like this is so unprofessional.
Well, no, it is though. It was. She was right. It was unprofessional and it was rude, and it's and that's the cost that I'm paying. Is some people's perspective on me to be getting more people to click on it and listen to the discussion because it's a discussion worth listening to and engaging.
Yeah, but it's saw it as like clickbait or so.
Yeah, which is what it was. But when it comes to the sexual harassment stuff in the workplace, what's your just give me? Obviously, you're engaged and now you're live.
Yeah.
So just give me your 2 cents on this.
It's funny because it wasn't until this year and until the whole Me Too movement came to life where I started to realize all the jobs I had previously, there was some form of sexual harassment, some form of it, even if it was little. And I like to be very honest, there are men that have no clue that they're being inappropriate. But there are certain things you just don't say. Or I had a situation, I worked at Goldman Sachs for 4 years, and I was only in the cafeteria level. I was the manager of like the coffee station area. And one of the chefs that used to work in the kitchen, he was about 55 years old. I, at the time, 22. And he would start flirting with me probably my 3rd month in.
So remember, we're generational gap here. So, yeah. And I think we have some strong lines with what's acceptable generationally. And I think we're in a big transition period because that is a different generation. But I'm curious what you felt to be flirtatious.
Well, hold on. I want to ask one kind of relevant question here, which is, in that position, did he have power to control your job in terms of like, could he have fired you if he wanted to?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
That's
Even
important.
though I will say this, we were union based. So anyone who was in the union was kind of safe, but he did have pull. He was the top chef. He made all the orders.
Okay, so he's older than you. There's a generational gap, and he has some level of control as to whether you keep your employment.
Yeah. What I didn't notice, I really didn't notice the flirting at the beginning. I feel that some people are just charming and some people are just nice. So I don't take everything as flirting. But when the hand starts touching me right above the butt, or when like the rubbing of the back happens, I feel like it's so inappropriate. And
that's weird as shit.
That's a line. And men, it happens all the time. It's happened to me in about 3 to 4 jobs. I've been working since I was 14. I'm 32 now. 3 to 4 jobs, it has happened. Or it's like a little sly comment like, oh, I have a manager in a previous job I don't even want to mention. And he was head honcho. And he was like, I forgot, we were having a conversation about breakfast with bacon, egg, and cheese and how popular it is in New York. It's like a staple breakfast. And he pulled me to the side. He was like, I would love to get you some bacon sometime. And I left it alone because I didn't take it seriously. I thought it was just a joke. I was like, what a coward, like whatever. But then it continued because I didn't say anything and I didn't set the tone. He saw that as, let me continue flirting with her until maybe she gives me something. And a lot of guys don't know when to stop, even if you tell them nicely.
So now on that, so at the end of the day, and the beginning of the day, we're all animals. So we can't control being attracted to someone, the Propiquity Factor. Now you have to draw a guideline somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's probably, I don't know what the numbers are like, but I'll bet you a lot of people meet their spouse at work. And I would say, and you did, okay. I would say a great number of people have met their significant other
100%.
or past people that they've been with through work. So it happens. And I think if you just cut that out as a possibility, I don't think we kind of exist as a society.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of something that happens.
And I've never agreed that you could even stop that. Like, there's a lot of jobs that stop you from dating, and that doesn't make sense.
Or especially if you're corporate, somebody might have to step down, or you have to keep it a secret.
Well, I think there's a difference in terms of like that. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made to prevent people from dating that are at different employment levels. So having a manager that's dating someone that they're in charge of, that could be a problem. But if you have two people that are at roughly the same employment level, then it doesn't really make sense to ban that.
What if we started at the same level and one got promoted? Because that's what happened for me and my husband. I was a host, entry. He was already there for 6 years. He was a supervisor. I became a supervisor. He became a manager. So we were always off. And
yeah, well, that's where it gets dicey, and you raise a good point. I think, well, there's reality, and then there's what should happen. So what should happen is if you're dating somebody that you work with and either you or they get promoted, and now there's this differential in power where you might be able to control their job, where you could fire somebody, then ideally one of the two of you probably needs to leave that job and say, look, now that you can fire me if we get into an argument or something the night before, like I need to work somewhere else.
But it's not that easy to just switch jobs.
Yeah,
no, I'm saying that's ideally that's what should happen, is that if you're dating somebody and they get promoted and now they're your boss or whatever, you might have to say, I need to leave this job to maintain professionalism and maintain the relationship and keep work and personal life separate.
So
in reality, that's a lot harder to achieve, and I don't know what the answer is.
So we just got a comment that said, a manager told me once I had nice lips. Now, to me, that's like a really minor thing that like probably shouldn't be okay, and I feel like it's like right over the line, in the sense that like it was just a compliment's a compliment. You look nice today, I think is on the other. You look nice today is on the other side of the line by a couple of steps, but not far. You look nice today is on the other side of the line. You look pretty today is on the wrong side.
Oh, that's so disrespectful.
I don't think that's as bad as saying you have nice lips, though.
But
it is. It's weird. I would not want a guy to come up to me that I work with and just randomly out of nowhere be like, you have nice lips.
That's weirder to me than saying you look really pretty today.
But it is weird. It is. But the thing is, people don't know how to interact. And that is, I think, really, again, with the fact that we're animals, a lot of people have an urge to say something nice, and then they just come up with some shit, you know. And what if it is the person that just wants to be like, hi, you look, today, your lips look nice. And like they're, you know, and like that.
Yeah, but it's all in the delivery. If you come across like that, it's not going to come off creepy because you're like, this dude just doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, because what if I wouldn't take it wrong if it's a guy that's like, wow, that lip color is amazing. Your lips look great.
Well, but that's on the line. Your lips.
Yeah, but again, it's all in the delivery.
Yeah.
Rose, I'm going to get to, and then, but then also, Rose is saying that someone went on to say what he would do with her lips, which I don't.
Yeah, well, now we're way out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that could go in different depths, but either way, it's in the outfield. So, but
again, it's in the delivery.
But how do you establish these lines on a corporate level? How do you write it into a handbook? And Nicole, James and I on Thursday are going to sit down with someone who's going to be administering this sexual harassment training for my office, and we're gonna get some of this more handbook stuff. But I don't think he's going to be able to just kind of spitball like we are now.
Is it a male or female doing the sexual harassment?
It's my female friend Jamie, who's an attorney, and then I don't know exactly his role, but he's the one administrator who works for the company, and it's a guy.
So 2 people?
It's going to be 2 people, but it's a lot of it's coming from the trainer, and we're going to have a conversation about it, which is the goal.
That's really good. I mean, I think everyone needs to start doing more sexual harassment trainings, because there's a lot going on that it really flies over the heads of a lot of people, because it's not something that, for example, a man wouldn't be used to that on a daily basis. And I think it stems from the way that a man grows up. You have to know how to speak to women. There are a billion things that I'm learning today that are so inappropriate to say. Like, you shouldn't speak on certain things to women, especially in a work setting. So I feel like—
Give us some examples of something that a guy might think is okay, but isn't.
But I want to get into the example stuff. I'm curious, obviously as a woman, you're going to be much more familiar with it than we would be as guys.
Which is why we're happy to have you here.
So when I started a job working, I don't want to say the name of it. It was the previous job, 2016. It was so overwhelming, because I come into this job, I'm the new girl, I get trained for 3 days. I am not even exaggerating with you. Over 10 to 12 people were on top of me within day 2, trying to get my phone number, trying to take me out on a date. I have never had anything like that happen to me previously. And this is also the job where my husband currently still works. That's where we met.
So
he's not one of those men.
So this is tough, because I see like the, what's the word? Like the primal instinct. Like I'm seeing, if you were a woman, if you were a female tiger put in the zoo and you were new to the pen, like all the guys would probably be, and that's animal instinct. So
totally, but I feel like it's all about approach. And if I can set out the guys that did, for example, my husband now, he did not approach me in that way at all. We actually got cool because we just started talking about life and just regular topics. He wasn't like intrusive. He wasn't trying to take me out, get information on me. He wasn't over complimenting me. All these other guys didn't even know my first name, and they were already jumping to conclusions. And then they were saying things to other people within the first week, where the girls then started looking at me in a bad way and speaking badly about me because they thought that I was feeding into it, or they were jealous. I don't know what it was, but I remember feeling so uncomfortable for a long time. No matter what corner I turned, I was talking to this guy. This guy had my number, and I never knew how. And it was just because the guys would talk amongst themselves, and they were like, oh, Nicole's gonna hang out with us this night. She spoke to me when we had a drink. I tell you not, there were rumors about me for a whole month when I never had longer than like a 5-minute conversation with these guys.
All right, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your 2016 self as to how to handle that situation better?
But hold on, just on that question, what we're saying, what the current, like, societally, is we're saying it's not on her.
No, absolutely not.
I'm not saying it was, but I just want to make it clear that right now, kind of the viewpoint is that it's not on her.
Right. No, I'm not saying that she's to blame for any of this.
But there's one of her, and there's multiple other offenders.
Right. But the question that I have is, now that she knows she's more mature, she's more knowledgeable about how to handle these situations. What happened there wasn't her fault. She didn't do anything wrong, but she probably knows more things about how she could have shut that down and gone about it in a way to get that treatment to stop.
I was a person that was very shy, and I was a people pleaser. So whenever someone I used to also claim I was more direct than I am today. So if someone would talk to me and say something, I would laugh it off. So why would someone take anyone seriously if they always laughed off the flirting or like, oh my God, stop? That makes a guy want to continue because he thinks that you're flirting back with him. And I did that a lot. So I would probably be very upfront, which a lot of guys are going to assume that I'm being a bitch. But that's something that I would do. I would just say, look, cut the shit. Don't do it. You want to be friends? We'll be friends. That's fine. Don't do anything else. And I feel you have to be that direct with certain men because they do not know how to take no for an
So,
answer.
can you describe a specific incidents? If like somebody is hanging out all of a sudden around your desk, and then what would you have said? Like, it's just some
Okay,
kind
so
of definitive actions.
That guy at Goldman Sachs, the 55-year-old man, Mike. His name was Michael on his tag. Everyone called him Michael, but he's like, you can call me Mike. I'll never forget it. This guy, anytime that he made any type of pass, I would just do this like if he would touch my back, I would show with action and with my body that I didn't want him to touch me, but I still allowed him to at the end of the day. So for a lot of guys, their thought process is, well, I'm still doing it. She's not saying no. So this means I can still move forward. Me today, if he were doing that, I would remove his hand and say, stop it and don't let it happen again. I feel like we have to be more stern and more honest and direct, no matter how people look at you. It's important.
But especially when you're new, though, that's a really difficult move to make.
It's also on the guy. I'm noticing a lot that everything is on the woman. When you think of so many situations, the woman should dress differently. Why were you in his house at 2 a.m.?
Well, that's a good question.
Like all of those things, but it doesn't warrant someone being able to harass me, to rape me, to assault me in any kind of way. Just because I'm in your home at 2 a.m. does not mean anything. Maybe I see you as a friend and I trust you and we're just hanging out, because that's usually the situation. And what a lot of people do not know, they don't know facts of sexual assault. 90% of people that report sexual assault or that speak on it, they're telling the truth. 90, that's a huge number. So 10% of people are lying, and those 10% are the people that are ruining it for those that are actually telling the truth. And then you have the men that want to come out and say, well, what can you do differently? What do you think you should do better? When I think men should just be raised better. I don't think men are being raised properly, honestly. I think they're being raised to you're the guy, go ahead, you go get that girl. And for a woman, it's like, don't touch any man, don't be next to anyone. The guy gets rewarded. He's always getting rewarded as he grows up.
But this is an EQ type of issue. And just like James and I are here asking you.
Yeah, and first of all, we agree with everything that you're saying.
Feel free to reverse it,
Let me throw one thing out there, though, because I think this is something that there's kind of a disconnect between men and women here, where, and again, I realize that I'm kind of breaking a rule that you just set out for us, but I need to say this and then you can respond, which is that sometimes when men send signals to women, we think that we're being very clear, and very often we are. And then sometimes when women send signals back to men, they think they're being clear, but to men, we don't interpret it as being clear. And so, there's been plenty of times when, in an interaction with a girl, one way or the other, I didn't know what she was expecting from me. And later on, I would talk to her, and I would say, what was going on there? And she's like, it wasn't obvious what I was looking for from you. I was like, no, not at all. She says, I couldn't have been more clear. I'm like, no, I didn't pick up on that at all. Whichever direction whatever signal she was sending, I didn't pick up on it. And I think that's true of a lot of guys, is that when we're looking for signals from a woman, they're much more subtle than if we were to be getting the same kind of signals from a dude. Not this is now getting out of the romantic area, but that women sometimes feel like they're being more obvious than they actually are, and that other women might pick up on it, but sometimes men don't pick up on the subtle signals that women send. We're dumb creatures in a lot of ways.
I just say this is how I feel. What if there are no signals? What if you just communicate? I feel like people don't want to communicate anymore. Certain men are afraid to speak up and say what they really want. For example, if two people meet in the street, I always say this, and I've said this to my husband. When we first started dating, I'm like, listen, if you feel the need to creep out or do anything, I would rather hear it from your mouth than to find out from a friend or to find out from Instagram or social media. Communication is key. Men don't know, and some women as well, don't know how many times they can be actually forgiven or understood if they just spoke, rather than assume and bury it and lie or give some sort of weird signal, because not everyone is the same human being. So everyone's going to have different signals. How do we interpret those? Just communicate.
Well, let me give you a scenario, and I'm going to go back to the workplace because that's where this conversation originated. And it's typically them, and I think we can agree on this based on kind of all of our stances so far. It's typically the male who is the aggressor, and that's not always the case. I can tell you that as a guy.
Oh, it's not always the case.
But more often than not, we can agree, right?
It's typically the male who's the aggressor. So in this, and here's my scenario. How does a male in the workplace communicate that he is attracted, but doesn't want to compromise anyone's comfort levels and come off as a weirdo?
Right.
Just
so
like that.
Let me rephrase it in a very simple way. If I'm working in a place and you were just hired, and I would like to ask you out on a date, how do I go about? Because I don't think, and assume again, we're at the same level of employment. I don't think there's anything wrong with, male or female, asking someone that you work with to go out on a date. How do you do that in a way that doesn't cross the line?
I mean, I think it's easier said than done, but it depends on the person's comfort level with the other person. I would have wanted someone to come up to me and say, I know that we don't know each other that well, but I would like to get to know you a little better, if that's okay with you. I know we work in the same setting. If that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, can I take you out? It's that simple. So
the advice that I get, and very similar to that, is the advice, and that's pretty direct, what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in middle school and high school and not understanding how to date. And, I have half of the meetings I have are more socially, almost like therapist role, I feel like, with what I do now. I'm not doing so much real estate and just dealing with bullshit. And part of dealing with bullshit is dealing with people. But when it comes to that, what I've told people is that if you're into someone, let them know that.
Yeah.
Right away. And you have to go in knowing that it's a plenty of fish world. And if you're interested in somebody, they're not interested back, then you
take no for an answer.
No harm, no foul. No harm, no foul, providing there was no harm. But if you go about doing this covert operation, ninja shit, I'm gonna loom around their desk, I'm gonna give them a back rub at work type of shit, and then some magic shit's gonna happen in the hallway near the bathrooms. I don't know what people are fucking thinking, but if you're just kind of, and it is a communication issue. But again, people they teach home ec, all right? They teach you how to fucking sew in 7th grade, but the communication aspect of it is not something. Social communication, social cues could be not a class, but it could be a chapter. It could be a chapter in the fucking home ec, humanities even. It could be a chapter in one of these classes where it may not give you the full spectrum of the knowledge, but it may give you some of the information. What I'm saying is a health teacher doesn't whip out their dick and put a condom on it, right?
Exactly.
You can deduce from there, and you can assume, they show you a condom.
They do take out the banana. Yeah. They did that for me. They took out the banana.
Yeah, we didn't get that treatment.
They also train you in school to be a mom at a young age, so they have you walking around carrying fake babies.
Well, they made us do that as dudes.
I think I don't think that's a good idea.
In our school, we had to carry around the 5-pound sack of flour for a month or 2 weeks or whatever too. And I was a dude. I'm like, first of all, I'm never having kids. Second of all, if I am having kids, I'm not the one carrying it.
They don't teach taxes. They don't teach real estate. They don't teach any of that. And those things are important because once you grow up, there are some people that move out at the age of 15. They should know what to do from, I believe, 6th grade to 12th grade. They should know how to do all of those things.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, I think kind of going along with what you were saying and what Justin was saying is there's nothing wrong with going and asking somebody that you're working with out. But if they say no, then that's the end of it. Is say, okay.
Whoa, no, hold up. That's not the end of it.
That's not the end of it.
But it should be. I'm saying if I ask somebody out and they say, I'm not interested in going out with you, then I need to just say, okay, cool.
Wait. How many people have you been attracted to or maybe not been attracted to and then ended up dating down the line? So that's just why it's not linear. You meet somebody, they grow on you. Maybe they hit on you, and then so this is where the emotional intelligence comes into play. And it's there. You can't print this shit in a fucking textbook.
But I'm gonna disagree with you on this one, because the thing is, if I ask a girl out and she says no,
hold on, guys.
Maybe I'm still interested in her, but she said no.
Exactly.
If she changes her mind some point down the line, she will let me know. I have no business asking her out again after she's already said no.
We're talking about
if she changes her mind and wants to go out with me, she'll say, hey, you asked me about that drink a couple of months ago. I wasn't able to then, but I'd like to now. Are you free this weekend or whatever? And then maybe I'll say yes, maybe I'll say no. Depends on where my life is. But I don't have any business asking someone who's already said no to me again.
So for those on live, we're talking about sexual harassment in the workplace.
But there are guys that get upset or they start to feel some type of way when you do say no. So they'll start to treat you differently, or they'll start to talk about you differently. And that is on the person and
that's wrong.
Who they are. Yeah. Which is terrible. But that's what usually happens in settings like this at work for women. I can guarantee you, if you found 100 women and asked them if they've ever been assaulted at a job, they're all going to say yes. And they're all going to have more than 2 stories for you.
But
I think harassed and assaulted are 2 different words. I don't think assaulted.
But also, we still have yet to define harassment and assaulted. Assaulted effectively means you've been touched inappropriately. Yeah. Although I actually don't think that's the definition of the word assaulted. But it's effectively like basically, if you're swinging at someone, it's assault until you connect.
Yeah, make a physical attack.
It's battery. But
assault, making a physical attack.
But where is it harassment and where is it okay and where does it cross that boundary? Because
it's harassment when they do over texting.
Well, I think it should. I think. My understanding of harassment is that once you say stop or no and it continues, then it becomes harassment. I could be wrong on this.
I mean, no, because what if the person is just afraid to say stop or no and they just let it wiggle off?
But how much of that
harassing them?
But how much of that should be on them? Just like what you were giving to the advice you were giving to 27, 28-year-old Nicole. But
that's still on the way the person was raised. And you can still tell with body cues when someone feels uncomfortable when you tell them.
Some people can't. Some people
I don't think so. You would know if a guy is hitting on a girl and she's just like, okay, and she does that, you're going to know that she's not interested because she's not entertaining it further. Maybe she doesn't say stop or no, but she's saying, cool. And then she never talks to you. She leaves you alone. She doesn't embrace you in any kind of way. And you keep trying and you keep going and she feels too uncomfortable, which is, have you guys seen The Morning Show on Apple TV?
No, I have not.
No.
Okay. I think you guys have to see that. It's the best show. It got nominated, I think, 11 times. Listen, this situation is kind of, I forgot what the guy's name from NBC is. It's sexual harassment and assault. And he has no idea that he's done anything, or at least you would assume so. But then they show in one of the episodes how it happens. And I can tell you, honestly, it changed my mind completely on it. And I used to look at a lot of women, and I used to be this person as well, where I would say you invited the idea. You invited this guy to do these things because you never said stop. You always just egged him on and you were super sweet and you let him flirt. And this is what one of the girls did. And she was one of the executives as well, like in the show. And he manipulated her in so many ways where he ends up assaulting her terribly and acts like nothing ever happened. at all right after it. And she literally ends up like losing pretty much her way through life after that. And no one believes her because she stays quiet about it. It's this big thing.
I would like to watch this because, you know,
Of course, it's a good show.
And we're going to wrap in a minute, but my thinking is, if some random person grabs my junk.
Oh my God. That's assault.
Sure, but like, you know, I'm going to get a snack and forget about it.
Listen, if someone did it to you,
right now,
it's completely inappropriate, and it is assault.
Sure. But I understand that there's going to be a certain amount of shit that happens to me that I don't want to, that I don't want to happen to me, that I'm going to have to live on my life, and I'm going to be bigger than that smaller incident.
Oh.
And that's my thing is how people are claiming to be so damaged from things that happen. And that's why I'm telling you, I want to watch the episode, so maybe I have a deeper understanding of that.
I think you're both right here.
I think saying that, hold on, let me get my thoughts together really quickly. Okay. So you're saying that people that say that they're damaged, elaborate more on that before I even hit my point.
The unwanted touching of, you know, whether it's below the waist or below the shoulders or on the back,
mm-hmm.
You know, if it's your tits, your ass, your genitals, that is obviously way, way, way beyond the shoulder pat and then the shoulder rub. There's varying degrees of this. But what I'm saying is, how life-altering are these events where somebody feels you up? Now, it's happening on a long-time basis, and it's affecting your career, but it happens like once or twice. Like, I've been put in uncomfortable situations many times. And
like, these aren't just uncomfortable situations. This is someone touching your temple. Everyone's body belongs to them, right?
Well, that's
picture a random person just trying to take what is not theirs, trying to touch what is not theirs without consent or permission. It can hurt someone drastically because you never know what happened to them in their past. It could re-trigger something that may have happened to them in the past. Or if it continuously happens, usually what comes out of that is an actual assault. Because the person, that's how a lot of assaults happen, especially in a work setting, when it is an assault, not harassment. They start harassing you, then they start with the little shoulder rubs. They start to like groom you and get comfortable with you, and then they assault you. Russell Simmons did it to Drew Dixon. The Russell Simmons, the hip hop Russell Simmons, has over 22 allegations of rape. And he started every single situation exactly the way that we're describing right now. And where is he right now? In Bali, because of the extraditionary treaty.
Yeah. Well, I think
every day.
Yeah, I think that both of you raise good points, which is like any kind of unwanted touching is wrong and it shouldn't happen, and you should call it out when it occurs. But at the same time, like a single instance by itself is something that, like, now there's a difference between like truly being sexually assaulted or raped versus like an unwanted touching of they touch your butt or they rub up against you in the wrong way or whatever. Like, that's not cool. I'm not endorsing it, but to let that kind of ruin everything about your next day, week, month, year, or whatever is a bit much. And to blow up a single incident to be kind of apocalyptic is a bit much. So I think that there's a balance to be struck here.
But what's a bit much to you may not be a bit much to me. So everyone has different levels of what is a lot to them.
So, but that's...
It can take any single situation for someone's entire world to flip upside down. So we don't know everyone's like mindset to say that also.
And we're not all we're trying to get on the same page. We're in the same chapter right now. We may not all be able to get on the same page because we don't have each other's backgrounds or understanding of this.
I have a question.
Sure.
really quick. What do you do in the setting where, let's say the person just like, all right, they did like an ass grab or, you know, the front grab, and they've done it twice to two different people?
Well, but I don't. Are you saying me as the boss?
No,
So-
not you. Let's just say.
Are you saying me as a victim?
Yeah. Wouldn't you want to get rid of that person because it's a cycle? It's what could be a cycle of something, and I wouldn't want anyone to represent my brand.
Oh yeah,
that
no.
they're
I don't
okay
think
doing that.
I'm not saying that person should be allowed to continue doing that. Like if that happens to me, if I'm at work or I'm at a work event or whatever, and somebody else comes up and does that to me, I'm probably going to address it immediately with them and be like, yo, that wasn't cool. Don't do that again. And then
Right.
probably
You
in
don't,
private,
when you see it
I
happen.
might go to one of the partners at my firm
Yeah,
and
have
say,
to.
hey, so and so acted in this manner. I didn't feel comfortable about it. I'm not really sure what to do about it because I can't fire anybody and I'm not looking to fire anybody, but this is what happened. I didn't like it. Can you please talk to them?
But also, I think your actions, as it continues, your actions need to grow. You know,
Whose actions?
you as the not as the non-offender, as the witness, or as the offended.
Yeah.
Your actions need. You know, you may say nothing the first time. You say something the next time. It happens to someone else. You say something to someone else. But I think it needs to grow. I think the fact that we're having this conversation, though, I think is good because we all don't have the same perspective on this. And anybody who's listening is learning different perspectives. But it's a very tricky subject. And for some aspects of it, it's not tricky at all.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are fucking retards, should be punched in the face or kicked in the groin or put in jail. Okay? But especially, I mean, but again, you know, we're drawing lines in different places here.
Yeah,
But
and none of us are coming down on the side of defending sexual assault or sexual harassment. We're trying to come up with
we're
some
trying to
kind of
identify-
code of behavior.
Totally. I agree with that. And I think that's freaking awesome because I don't think this conversation is being had enough.
well, that's I don't think we're gonna.
I think more men need to have this conversation also.
Yeah.
Because that's who's doing it. The majority are men. And if they hear other men standing against them, I think it might lower and like not happen as much, but who knows? It depends on people and how they're brought up, of course.
Yeah. No. Again, a lot of it has to do with the bringing up, but also there are aspects that are out of the parents' control and their experience that people experience outside of the home and outside of the familiar construct.
Definitely.
But it's just wild how this is such a big issue right now, and it's so undefined. We're writing the rule book as we go, and not all of us agree on the rules.
But you know what's funny? I feel like this has been happening for centuries. It's just that now you have people speaking up about it. You have the Me Too movement who has actually opened the eyes of a lot of women and men and helped them to realize what really happened to them. Because a lot of people, they compartmentalize it and they don't really pay attention to what happened to them or try to dissect it.
But that may not be a bad thing either. People putting something that happened to them behind them and saying, I'm not going to let that bullshit define me. I'm going to forget about it. And just like the person that called my office and said this happened a really long time ago, and now I want to take this guy, you know, and ruin his life. I don't know what happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know.
But do you feel, because I heard that being said earlier, which I was in the middle of doing my makeup to do a photo shoot, and I had it on my Apple TV, and I ran to get my phone because I was like, hold on, I need to talk about this right now.
Yeah.
Do you think because it's the past that it should be left alone?
So, but that's, how do you where's the relief on that? Okay. And also maybe that person dealt with that, you know, maybe somebody had an interaction that they felt really sorrowful about, but they left it untouched because they didn't want to make it a bigger issue than it was for the other person. They felt bad about it for 15 years.
Or, what happens if the agent comes to you and says, you know, what they're saying is true, and it was a really big mistake that I made at the time. I'm not like that anymore. I've learned my lesson. I regret the harm that I caused. Like, can you punish somebody for something that they did in the past
Yes.
if they truly feel like they recognize that what they did was wrong and that they're not going to repeat that mistake?
Okay, let me ask it this way. If it were your wife or your child, right? And someone abused them years ago, would you want justice for your daughter or your wife? Or would you want them just to let it go, forget about it, and let that person keep roaming around? Because that's just something they're saying. No one is openly going to admit to harassment, to assault, to rape. No one just admits it. Think about it. When have you heard someone openly admit it? Ever? You could probably name someone with one hand who has actually admitted. Me, I'm a survivor. My thing happened to me when I was 7 to 11 years old with my own father. I just brought it to life this year. My mom just found out last year in March, and the world of YouTube just found out this year, 2 months ago. So I still want justice. You want to know why? Because that man still lives with my little sister, my brother, and 3 other kids. And when I took out and I put my video up, do you want to know how many phone calls I received of people that were also assaulted by my own father? I would have never found that out if I would have never spoken up about it, and if I would have never tried to get some form of justice. I think a lot of people don't bring things up because they don't realize it, because they bury it, because they don't even think it's real, or they haven't faced it. A lot of times it's not just, oh, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just going to wait for a certain moment to bring it up. It's literally, you battle yourself in your head for years. Sometimes I thought mine was a nightmare. For over 10 years, I had to call my best friend and ask her, did I ever tell you this story about my father? She was like, 100%. And that's the moment I knew it was real. Also watching documentaries. It brings things up and you hear other people's stories and you start to say, wait a minute, is this what happened to me? And I feel with this climate right now, with the Me Too movement, that is exactly what happened. People started coming out of the woodworks, and it opened up my eyes 110%.
Yeah.
I was never going to say anything.
But you just asked a question and share your experience, and based off your experience, that you're saying, should you let that person go? And then when you give that example, like that's obviously a very clear example of definitely not. Like that's somewhere where justice needs to happen.
Yep.
Whereas when we started the question, we weren't leaning that far in that direction. It's
who's to say what exactly happens, because we say like, let's wait for evidence or for the person to speak about it. We'd never know whether it's like a tap on the shoulder or like a groping situation. That is just as bad. It's not okay. It's not allowed. No one should be walking the streets doing anything like that. And typically we don't know if that person is doing it a bunch of times to other people.
Yeah, but it's difficult when you don't know. So you can't assume one way or the other. It's really, that's kind of how our courts work. You need evidence, and that's why this gets dicey, because you could have some other vendetta against somebody, and but that's why we have these kind of that's why the judicial system is the way it is, and that's why, as a society, with the Me Too movement and everything else going on, why it's such a complex issue.
Well, here's where it gets difficult, and this
because
is kind
men
of
run the world. That's why they made all the rules.
This is a unique case because in very few other legal situations do you have, like, you've got two competing interests here. You've got the rights of the accused, which is innocent until proven guilty. They get to confront their accuser, and they get to try and present a counterfactual to whatever charges are against them, because you need to be able to defend yourself in a legal manner. However, you also have the rights of the victim, where if they've gone through something traumatic, then having to go back and relive that experience and retell that and have that experience criticized and scrutinized, it can just reintroduce the trauma and make the experience, however bad the experience was at the outset, it'll be that much worse, because now they have to go back through that experience and have the public pick it apart.
Yep.
And you have these two fundamental rights of protecting the victim and protecting the accused that are diametrically opposed. And if you go too far one way or the other, then it's not fair to one party or the other. But there's not really a compromise that can be made, and it's a paradox, or there's some kind of incongruity here, where if you try and protect the rights of the accused, then you're necessarily infringing upon the rights of the victim. But if you respect the rights of the victim too much, then you can have situations where someone is legitimately innocent and not able to defend themselves.
So guys, we're beyond the 90-minute mark. I gotta cut it.
Well, let's leave it at that kind of. Let's leave it at that paradox then of where you cut this balance.
Well, you've articulated that very well. I like the velocity that we reached in this topic. So let's leave it there. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, I really want to know some experiences. Obviously, it's too personal. You don't want to share it. Cool. But I'd love to hear your experiences. You want to share in the comments. If you guys are watching live, you want to share, you want to DM me. I'd love to tell some stories on the next time we're recording. But Nicole, thank you very much for joining. We'll touch base soon.
Coco, off the stream, I work in accounting, and my firm specializes in like small businesses and everything else. So It might be good for us to talk about, since you're running a business, and that's pretty much what I do.
I'm still learning. I've been teaching myself everything, so I'll definitely bother you.
Guys, I'll connect you. I'll connect you afterwards.
Okay.
I'm going to sign off. So thank you for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you soon.
This was awesome.
All right. Adios.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. This is part 1 and part 2 of SipTalk episode 33 and 34. Episode 35, we're going to have a sexual harassment trainer for the workplace, and I think it's going to get a bit more corporate. You'll get a bit more textbook, handbook type stuff about sexual harassment. I think it's going to be really cool. But as I mentioned earlier, I would really love to hear your stories, providing you're comfortable sharing them. I think starting a conversation or perpetuating this conversation about sexual harassment is really important, because there's so much undefined space. But I appreciate you being part of this. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your likes, and I appreciate you sharing this podcast. So thank you very much, and I look forward to doing more of these with you. Thanks.